I stood at the floor-to-ceiling window of the executive boardroom, watching the October Technologies building across the street. From here, 15 stories up, it looked smaller than I remembered. The press cameras were setting up below, their white vans clustered like eager predators. My reflection stared back at me, navy suit, minimal jewelry, expression carefully neutral. In exactly 8 minutes, I would be introduced as the new Chief Risk Officer of Ashton Global Ventures, one of the largest venture capital firms in the region. And my former boss, standing somewhere in that building across the street, would watch the announcement live. How does a person go from disposable to indispensable in 96 hours? 24 hours earlier. The morning started the way most Tuesdays did at October Technologies, with my inbox exploding before I'd finished my coffee. I was a senior financial analyst, though the title barely captured what I actually did. Risk assessment, vendor vetting, compliance documentation, fraud detection protocol updates, and whatever else landed on my desk with a sticky note reading "Penelope, handle this." I'd been with the company for 6 years. Long enough to know every system, every loophole, every vendor relationship that kept our operations running. Long enough to have built the entire vendor audit framework we currently used. Not long enough, apparently, to be trusted with actually using it. The email from Dale Hutchinson, my direct supervisor and the company's CFO, arrived at 7:47 a.m. Subject: Vendor Audit Reassignment. Penelope. I'm moving forward with Claudia for the Spectrum Solutions audit next week. She's been showing real initiative, and frankly, she spots issues faster than you've been catching them lately. Focus on the compliance reports instead. They're due Friday. DH. I read it 3 times. Each time, the words rearranged themselves into the same dismissive message. Claudia Monroe had been hired 4 months ago, straight out of her MBA program. Bright, confident, eager to prove herself. I'd trained her personally, walking her through our vendor assessment matrices, explaining the subtle red flags that only experience could teach you to recognize. And now she was taking over the audit I'd been preparing for since January. My desk phone rang. Dale's extension. Penelope, did you get my email? His voice had that brisk, already moving on quality that meant the decision wasn't up for discussion. I did. I just want to clarify. It's not personal. Claudia's fresh eyes might catch something we've been missing. You understand. Dale, I built the audit framework we're using. I know Spectrum's contract history, their subcontractor relationships, And that's exactly why I need you on compliance. Those reports are critical, and you're the only one who can pull them together properly. Trust me on this. The line went dead before I could respond. I sat there, staring at my computer screen. The Spectrum Solutions folder was open, 6 months of preliminary research, vendor history analysis, financial statement reviews, and carefully documented concerns about their cash flow patterns. I'd flagged 3 subsidiaries that appeared to be shell companies. I'd traced payment flows that didn't match their reported revenue streams. I'd found irregularities in their audit trail that suggested either incompetence or intentional obfuscation. All of that work, handed to someone who'd spent more time perfecting her presentation skills than understanding the substance behind them. My colleague, Helena Ward, appeared at my cubicle entrance with 2 cups of coffee. She was one of the few people in the office who understood what I actually did. I heard, she said quietly, setting 1 cup on my desk. That's complete garbage. It's fine. It's not fine. You've been carrying this department for years while Dale takes credit in board meetings. She lowered her voice. Everyone knows it except, apparently, him. I took a sip of coffee. It was too hot and burned my tongue. What am I supposed to do? I can't exactly march into his office and demand recognition. No, but you could start documenting everything. Just in case. In case of what? Helena gave me a look that was equal parts sympathy and frustration. In case you finally realize you're worth more than this place pays you. She left before I could answer. I turned back to my screen, where a new email notification had appeared. The sender was an automated system alert from our vendor management platform. Spectrum Solutions had just submitted their updated financial statements for the audit. I clicked through to the dashboard, a habit ingrained by years of monitoring. The numbers loaded slowly. And there it was, the first page of their quarterly report. Revenue projections that didn't align with their staffing costs. Capital expenditures that seemed inflated for a company their size. Depreciation schedules that suggested assets I couldn't find evidence of in their previous filings. I opened a blank document and started typing. If I wasn't going to be part of the official audit, I could at least organize my concerns. For the record. For myself. The morning dissolved into a blur of spreadsheets and cross-referenced data points. By lunch, I'd compiled a 15-page analysis of Spectrum's financial inconsistencies. By mid-afternoon, I'd mapped out their entire corporate structure and identified 2 additional shell companies that funneled money through offshore accounts. This wasn't just sloppy bookkeeping. This was systematic fraud. I saved everything to my personal cloud drive. Then I sent Dale a brief email. Dale. I've completed my preliminary review of Spectrum's updated financials. There are several significant concerns that should be addressed before finalizing any contract renewal. Happy to discuss when you have time. Penelope. His response came back in 4 minutes. Noted. Claudia's handling the audit now. Forward your notes to her. I stared at that email for a long time. Forward my notes. 6 months of work, reduced to notes. Instead of forwarding anything, I closed my laptop and walked to the break room. The afternoon sun slanted through the windows, illuminating dust particles that drifted like tiny galaxies. Someone had left the television on, financial news, talking heads discussing market volatility and corporate governance failures. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Is this Penelope Johnson? This is Yolanda Kim from Ashton Global Ventures. We met briefly at the finance conference in March. Would you have time for a call this week? I have an opportunity I'd like to discuss. I read the message twice. Yolanda Kim. I remembered her, poised, direct, the kind of person who listened more than she spoke. We'd sat on the same panel about risk assessment in emerging markets. She'd asked sharp questions afterward, and we'd exchanged business cards with vague promises to stay in touch. That was 8 months ago. I typed back, available Thursday afternoon. Her response was immediate, how about tonight? 6 p.m.? I'll call you. I agreed before I could overthink it. The rest of the day crawled by. I worked on the compliance reports Dale had assigned, pulling data from 7 different systems and formatting everything according to his exacting specifications. It was tedious work, the kind that required attention to detail but not actual analysis. The kind of work you give someone when you want them busy but not influential. At 5:30, I packed my bag and headed out. Dale was in his office, door closed, probably on one of his endless conference calls. Claudia sat at her desk, reviewing vendor files with an expression of determined concentration. She looked up as I passed. Penelope, wait, do you have a second? I stopped. What do you need? I'm going through the Spectrum materials, and some of your preliminary notes are, well, they're pretty detailed. I just want to make sure I understand your methodology for the cash flow analysis. She gestured to her screen, where my carefully constructed spreadsheets were open. Months of work, now hers to interpret. It's straightforward, I said, keeping my voice even. You're tracking actual cash movements against reported revenues. Look for discrepancies larger than 5%. Those usually indicate either accounting errors or intentional misrepresentation. Right, but how do I know which is which? You cross-reference with their vendor payments, employee payroll data, and capital asset purchases. If the story they're telling in their financial statements doesn't match the money trail, something's wrong. She nodded, making notes. Okay. And if I find something suspicious? Document it. Get supporting evidence. Don't bring it to Dale until you're certain. Why not? Because he'll dismiss it, I wanted to say. Because he's more interested in maintaining relationships than asking hard questions. Because he'll tell you that you're being overcautious, that you're too junior to understand the complexity of vendor relationships, that you should focus on the positive aspects of the partnership. Just make sure you're thorough, I said instead. She smiled, grateful. Thanks. I really appreciate you being so helpful about this transition. I left before I could say something I'd regret. The walk home took 20 minutes. I lived in a modest apartment 3 blocks from the office, close enough that I rarely bothered with my car. The city hummed around me, rush hour traffic, street vendors packing up their stands, the smell of roasted nuts and diesel fumes mixing in the cooling air. My apartment was quiet. I made tea, changed into comfortable clothes, and sat by the window that overlooked the street below. People moved with purpose, heading home to families or dinner plans or whatever filled their evenings. I had my phone, a cup of chamomile tea, and a call scheduled with a woman I barely knew. At exactly 6 p.m., my phone rang. "Penelope, thank you for making time on short notice." Yolanda's voice was warm but professional. "I'll get straight to it. Ashton Global Ventures is expanding our risk management division, and we're looking for someone to lead the vendor due diligence team. Your name came up in our internal discussions." "My name?" "We've been tracking your work at October Technologies. Your risk assessment framework has been cited in industry publications. Your fraud detection protocols are being adopted by firms 3 times your company's size. And several of our portfolio companies have specifically requested the kind of thorough vendor analysis you're known for." I sat very still. I wasn't aware my work had that kind of visibility. That's the problem with being excellent at what you do, the credit often goes elsewhere. But the people who matter notice. "We notice. What exactly are you offering?" "We'd like you to come in for a technical assessment tomorrow." "It's not an interview, exactly. We'll give you a real scenario, a potential portfolio company with complicated vendor relationships and financial irregularities. You'll have 3 hours to assess the risk and present your findings to our investment committee. If you can demonstrate the kind of insight we believe you have, we'll make you an offer." My heart was beating faster. "Tomorrow? I know it's sudden. But we're making final decisions this week, and I wanted to give you the opportunity before we move forward with other candidates." "What's the compensation range?" She named a figure that was nearly triple my current salary. I must have been silent too long because she added, "Plus equity, full benefits, and a team of analysts who will report directly to you. You'd be building the department from the ground up." "I need to think about this." "Of course. I'll send you the details via email." "But Penelope," she paused. "I've been doing this for 15 years. I can tell when someone's being wasted. Come in tomorrow. Show us what you can do. The worst that happens is you spend 3 hours solving an interesting problem." After we hung up, I sat in the darkening room. The city lights were coming on, windows glowing like a scattered constellation. Somewhere in one of those buildings, Dale was probably still at his desk, convinced of his own importance. Claudia was likely reviewing my notes, preparing to take credit for my work. And I was being offered a chance to leave it all behind. But first, I had to prove I could do what they believed I could do. I opened my laptop and pulled up the spectrum solutions analysis I'd been working on. If tomorrow's assessment was anything like this, I needed to be sharp. I needed to remember that I was good at this, better than good. I had spent years developing instincts that couldn't be taught in business school, pattern recognition that came from thousands of hours staring at financial statements until the numbers told stories. I worked until midnight, refining my analytical frameworks, practicing how I'd present complex findings to a room full of skeptical investors. Then I sent a brief email to Yolanda, "I'll be there." The next morning, I called in sick to October Technologies. It was the first sick day I'd taken in 18 months. Dale's response was a curt "feel better," followed by silence. Ashton Global Ventures occupied the top 5 floors of a glass tower downtown. The lobby was all polished marble and understated elegance. I checked in at reception, and a young man named Oliver escorted me to the 14th floor. "You'll be working in Conference Room C," he explained. "We prepared all the materials you'll need, laptops, financial statements, vendor contracts, whatever data you request. You'll have access to our research databases as well. 3 hours, starting whenever you're ready." The conference room was spacious and quiet. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the financial district. On the table sat a thick binder labeled "Confidential, Evergreen Logistics Group." I sat down and opened the binder. For the next 3 hours, I disappeared into the work. Evergreen Logistics was a supply chain management company seeking venture capital to expand internationally. On the surface, they looked promising: steady revenue growth, contracts with recognizable brands, ambitious but realistic expansion plans. I started with their vendor relationships. 37 active vendors, ranging from warehouse operators to software providers. I built a spreadsheet mapping the cash flows, cross-referencing payment dates with reported services. 2 vendors stood out immediately. They received monthly payments that didn't correspond to any visible deliverables. I dug deeper, tracing their corporate registrations. Both were LLCs registered in Delaware with minimal public information. Shell companies, most likely. I moved to their financial statements. Revenue was growing, but so were their expenses at an unsustainable rate. I calculated their burn rate and projected cash flow. At their current trajectory, they'd need another round of funding within 9 months, regardless of whether the expansion succeeded. Then I found the real problem. Buried in the footnotes of their audit report was a mention of related party transactions worth $1.2 million. I traced those transactions through their corporate structure. The CEO had a brother who owned one of the shell company vendors. They were funneling money out of the company through fake invoicing. I documented everything, built visual charts showing the money flows, and prepared a 10-page report with recommendations. By the time the 3 hours ended, I had a comprehensive risk assessment that concluded Evergreen Logistics was either incompetently managed or actively fraudulent. Either way, a terrible investment. At 2 p.m., Oliver returned. "They're ready for you in the executive boardroom." I followed him down the hall, carrying my laptop and printed report. My hands were steady. This was what I was good at. This was what I'd been doing in obscurity for years while others took credit. The boardroom held 8 people. Yolanda sat at the head of the table. Next to her was an older woman with silver hair and sharp eyes, Veronica Ashton, the firm's founder. The others were various partners and senior analysts. "Penelope, thank you for your time today," Veronica said. "We're eager to hear your assessment." I connected my laptop to the projector and pulled up my presentation. Evergreen Logistics presents as a growth stage company with solid fundamentals. However, a thorough analysis reveals significant red flags that make them a high-risk investment. I walked them through my findings. The phantom vendors. The unsustainable burn rate. The related party transactions. The CEO's brother's shell company. I showed them the money trail, explained how I'd traced it, and demonstrated why their audit firm had either missed these issues or chosen to overlook them. The room was completely silent. When I finished, Veronica leaned back in her chair. "How long did this take you?" 2 hours and 40 minutes. I spent the remaining time double-checking my calculations. "We had 3 other candidates complete this assessment," she said. 2 of them recommended proceeding with the investment, citing strong revenue growth. 1 flagged the burn rate but missed the fraud entirely. "You're the only person who found everything." Yolanda was smiling. "Penelope, we'd like to offer you the position of Chief Risk Officer, effective immediately. You'd report directly to Veronica, lead a team of 6 analysts, and have final approval authority on all due diligence for investments over $5 million. The number she quoted for salary was even higher than what she'd mentioned on the phone. The equity package was substantial. The benefits were comprehensive. "I need to give notice at my current position," I said. 2 weeks? Yolanda asked. "They don't deserve 2 weeks, I said quietly. "But yes. Professional courtesy." Veronica extended her hand. "Welcome to Ashton Global. I think you're going to do remarkable things here." I shook her hand, feeling the weight of the moment settle over me. This was real. This was happening. I left the building in a daze. The afternoon sun was bright, and the city felt different somehow, full of possibility instead of routine. I pulled out my phone and drafted my resignation email to Dale, then deleted it. This deserved to be done in person. But first, I wanted to savor this moment. I walked to a small park near the financial district and sat on a bench, watching people hurry past. My phone buzzed, a text from Helena. "How are you feeling? Still sick?" I smiled and typed back, "Much better. I'll be in tomorrow." That evening, I revised my resignation letter 3 times before I was satisfied. It was brief, professional, and revealed nothing about where I was going or why. Just a standard 2-week notice with gratitude for the opportunity and a commitment to ensuring a smooth transition. I barely slept. The next morning, I arrived at October Technologies at 7:30 a.m., earlier than usual. Dale's office was dark, but Claudia was already at her desk. She looked exhausted. "Long night?" I asked. I've been going through the Spectrum audit materials. Penelope, did you see the stuff about their subsidiary companies? Something feels off. What did you find? I'm not sure yet. That's the problem. There are all these cash transfers that don't make sense, and their expense reports don't match up with what they're claiming in their financial statements. But Dale wants me to finish the audit by tomorrow, and I don't think I can. Take your time, I said. If something's wrong, it's better to catch it now than miss it and regret it later. She nodded, clearly stressed. I felt a pang of sympathy. She wasn't the problem. She was just trying to do her job in a system that valued speed over accuracy, relationships over reality. Dale arrived at 9 a.m., carrying his usual oversized coffee. He barely glanced at me as he passed. Feeling better? Yes. Can I speak with you privately? He checked his watch. I have a call in 10 minutes. Can it wait? No. He sighed and gestured toward his office. I followed him inside and closed the door. I'm resigning. Effective 2 weeks from today. I handed him the letter. He stared at it without taking it. What are you talking about? I've accepted a position elsewhere. I'll work through the transition period and document all my current projects. Penelope, if this is about the Spectrum audit, that's not a reason to. It's not about one audit. It's about 6 years of being undervalued and overlooked. His expression shifted from confusion to irritation. That's ridiculous. You're a senior analyst with excellent benefits. Where else are you going to get? Chief Risk Officer at Ashton Global Ventures. They're one of the largest VC firms in the region. The color drained from his face. Ashton Global? When did you? They reached out to me. I completed their technical assessment yesterday. They made an offer on the spot. He stood up abruptly. You can't just leave in the middle of critical projects. The compliance reports are due Friday, and we're finalizing vendor contracts. Everything is documented. I'll spend the next 2 weeks ensuring whoever takes over has what they need. This is completely unprofessional. After everything I've done for your career. Dale. My voice was calm, but there was steel in it. I built the vendor audit framework you use. I caught 3 major compliance violations that saved this company millions in penalties. I trained half the analysts in this department. And you thanked me by giving my work to someone else because you thought she'd be faster at spotting issues. That's not what I said. That's exactly what you said. And here's the thing, I was right to be concerned about Spectrum. Ask Claudia what she's finding in those financial statements. Ask her about the shell companies and the cash flow irregularities. Ask her if she's comfortable signing off on a vendor relationship with a company that's either incompetent or fraudulent. His jaw tightened. You're overreacting. I'm leaving. 2 weeks. Use that time however you want. I walked out of his office before he could respond. My hands were shaking, but my head was clear. Claudia looked up as I passed, her expression uncertain. Everything okay? She asked. I just resigned. But before I go, I'm going to send you my complete analysis of Spectrum Solutions. Read it carefully. Don't let Dale pressure you into approving anything you're not comfortable with. Her eyes widened. Wait, you're leaving? In 2 weeks. You'll be fine, Claudia. You're smart and thorough. Just trust your instincts. I spent the rest of the morning documenting my projects and organizing files. Helena appeared at my desk just before lunch, her expression a mix of shock and admiration. You actually did it, she said. I did. Where are you going? I told her. Her jaw dropped. Penelope, that's incredible. How did they even find you? Apparently I have a reputation I didn't know about. She laughed. You have a reputation everyone knows about except you. Congratulations. Seriously. The word spread through the office like wildfire. By the end of the day, half the department knew I was leaving. Some people congratulated me. Others seemed shocked that quiet, dependable Penelope would make such a dramatic move. Dale avoided me entirely. On Thursday afternoon, Claudia came to my desk looking pale. Penelope, can we talk? Privately? We went to an empty conference room. She closed the door and leaned against it. I read your spectrum analysis. All of it. And? You were right. About everything. I spent the last 2 days tracking down the information you flagged, and it's worse than I thought. They've been systematically inflating their revenue and hiding losses through subsidiary companies. If we sign a contract with them, we'd be legally liable for partnering with a fraudulent vendor. Did you tell Dale? I tried. He said I was being paranoid and that we've worked with Spectrum for 3 years without problems. He told me to finalize the audit and stop looking for issues that aren't there. What are you going to do? She met my eyes. I'm going to document everything and send it to the Ethics Compliance Board. And then I'm going to update my resume, because I'm pretty sure I'm going to get fired. You're doing the right thing. I hope so. But I also wanted to say thank you. If you hadn't done all that preliminary work, I never would have known where to look. After she left, I sat alone in the conference room for a while. The sun was setting, painting the walls orange and gold. In a few days, I'd walk out of this building for the last time. In 2 weeks, I'd be sitting in a different office, leading a team, making decisions that actually mattered. But right now, I was still here. Still documenting. Still transitioning. Still being professional even though part of me wanted to burn it all down. Friday morning, everything exploded. I arrived at the office to find Dale in a full panic. His door was closed, but I could hear him shouting on the phone. Claudia's desk was empty. Helena caught my eye and mouthed, "Conference room. Now." I followed her down the hall. 3 other analysts were already there, whispering anxiously. "What's going on?" I asked. "Spectrum Solutions just had their credit line pulled," Helena said. "Their primary bank investigated the subsidiaries Claudia flagged and found evidence of fraud. They're filing for bankruptcy, and every company that worked with them is being scrutinized by federal regulators." When did this happen? Overnight. Claudia submitted her findings to the ethics board yesterday afternoon. They immediately contacted our legal department. Legal contacted Spectrum's bank. The bank did an emergency audit. Everything fell apart in less than 12 hours. I sat down slowly. "Where's Claudia?" "In a meeting with legal and the CEO. Dale's trying to explain why he was about to sign a contract extension with a fraudulent vendor. And Dale told me I was overreacting," I said quietly. Helena's expression was fierce. "If you hadn't done that analysis, if Claudia hadn't followed up, if Dale had gotten his way, we'd be legally tied to a company that's about to collapse under federal investigation. You just saved October Technologies from a massive scandal. I'm sure Dale will see it that way." She snorted. "Dale's going to try to take credit for catching it. Just watch." She was right. By Monday, the official company announcement praised the diligence and thoroughness of our financial analysis team in identifying the risks associated with Spectrum Solutions. Dale's name was mentioned 3 times. Claudia's once. Mine not at all. I didn't care. I was counting down the days until I left. On Tuesday of my final week, Yolanda called. "How's the transition going?" "Smoothly. I'll be done by Friday as planned." "Good. Because we'd like to accelerate your start date if possible. We have a major deal closing next Monday, and we could use your eyes on the due diligence." "I can start Monday morning." "Perfect. Oh, and one more thing, we're announcing your appointment this week. Press release goes out Thursday. Just a heads up." I hadn't considered that Ashton Global would announce my hiring publicly. It shouldn't have mattered. But it did. Thursday afternoon, Helena burst into the break room where I was making coffee. "Have you seen this?" She held up her phone. The screen showed a press release from Ashton Global Ventures. Ashton Global Ventures appoints Penelope Johnson as Chief Risk Officer. Ashton Global Ventures is pleased to announce the appointment of Penelope Johnson as Chief Risk Officer, effective immediately. Ms. Johnson brings extensive experience in vendor risk assessment, fraud detection, and financial due diligence. Most recently, she served as Senior Financial Analyst at October Technologies, where she developed industry-leading risk assessment frameworks and prevented multiple high-profile vendor fraud cases. "Penelope is exactly the kind of strategic thinker we need as we scale our operations," said Veronica Ashton, founder and CEO. "Her ability to identify risks that others miss is unparalleled." She's going to be instrumental in protecting our portfolio companies and ensuring we make sound investment decisions. Ms. Johnson will lead a team of analysts responsible for due diligence on all investments over $5 million. Helena was grinning. Chief Risk Officer. They're putting your name in the industry publications. Everyone's going to know you left for a massive promotion. I didn't do it for recognition. Maybe not. But you deserve it anyway. I returned to my desk to find an email from Dale, my office. Now. He was pacing when I entered. His face was red. Did you leak information to Ashton Global about our internal projects? Excuse me? This press release mentions preventing vendor fraud cases. The Spectrum situation just happened. How do they know about it? I didn't tell them anything confidential. But industry news travels fast, and Spectrum's bankruptcy filing is public record. This makes October Technologies look incompetent. It makes me look incompetent. No, Dale. What makes you look incompetent is that you tried to override your analysts' concerns about a fraudulent vendor. What makes this company look incompetent is that you were about to sign a contract that could have destroyed our reputation and exposed us to federal investigation. The fact that we caught it in time is the only reason we're not in the news for all the wrong reasons. I don't appreciate your tone. And I don't appreciate 6 years of my work being dismissed and undervalued. But here we are. He pointed at the door. Get out. I left with 3 days remaining. I could survive 3 more. My last day felt surreal. I finished documentation by noon, sent transition notes, organized every file. At 4 p.m., I packed my mug, plant, and a photo of my parents. Helena walked me to the elevator. You're going to do amazing things, she said. Don't let Dale take credit for your work. Monday, I stood in Ashton Global's boardroom as the press conference began. Veronica introduced me as the new Chief Risk Officer. Across the street, I imagined Dale watching, realizing the analyst he'd dismissed now held real influence. I wasn't thinking about revenge, just vindication. The first months were intense, leading 6 analysts, rebuilding risk frameworks, challenging investment decisions. Claudia emailed first, then Helena, then others, talented people who'd been overlooked at October. I hired the best of them. We became known for rigor and honesty. Then Dale applied. He even listed me as a reference. Dale, I said, I'm not hiring you. You took credit for my work and dismissed my concerns. That's not a grudge, it's a boundary. By year's end, my department had prevented major losses and earned industry attention. October struggled, losing clients and eventually parting with Dale. I felt no triumph, only clarity. One evening, looking out over the city, my phone buzzed, team dinner. I smiled, heading to the elevator. I'd built something better, not to prove anyone wrong, but to prove myself right.